Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now. 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
There you go. Just like that, we are off. We are running. It is another brand new live edition of Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Theisen, Drew DeArmond, welcome back into the program on a Thursday morning. That's right, Thursday morning. We have made it this far of the week. 256-576-4977. That's how you can join the program this morning. And speaking of Thursday, today is a great day if you love football. Because today there'll be 55, starting today, we get 55 consecutive days with at least one football game, either college or NFL. So starting today, enjoy it, folks. Enjoy it, because you are going to get 55 straight days of football of some fashion starting today. Whether it be NFL or college, it all starts. Now, the NFL game tonight, you'll have the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Falcons, 2-point favorite at home. That is your NFL game tonight. No college games tonight. College is tomorrow night, where you get 6th-ranked Oregon, Michigan State, and 25th-ranked UNLV and Syracuse. But again, today starts 55 straight days of some sort of football being played. 55 straight days of football.
Yeah.
There you go.
Football is well underway, and the Braves are not.
They are not, and you bring that up. Here's how it sounded on the West Coast last night.
Or Travis, lots of friends and family here. Southern California boy, and climbing in, trying to keep the Braves alive here in the ninth. Suarez's first pitch, swung on, popped up, foul ground, under it now, and making the catch, Higashioka. He topples over the top of his first baseman, Solano, but holds on. And the story of the 2024 Atlanta Braves ends right here at Petco Park in San Diego with a 5-4 defeat at the hands of the Padres. The Padres celebrate next to the mound. They have swept the Braves in the best-of-3 wild card series, and they will advance to the National League Division Series to face the rival Dodgers. For the Braves in the ninth, no runs, no hits, no errors, no one left. And the final score here in Game 2, Padres 5, Braves 4.
That's how the season came to an end for the Atlanta Braves last night in San Diego.
Well, Ben Ingram saying no one left, that's kind of apropos, because by the end of the season, there was hardly anyone left.
No.
I mean, they not having Chris Sale was just kind of a death blow against a team that good. And Max Fried had a good run, good career in Atlanta. It's over. I don't think he'll be coming back. He'll be leaving via free agency. And quite frankly, I wouldn't give him $20+ million a year when you get routinely or out with blisters.
Is that Max Fried?
Yeah. And he didn't pitch very well at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he got bombed. And he's just not been the last few years durable enough to pay $25 to $30 million a year. I wouldn't do it.
Right.
Chris Sale in his 1 year in Atlanta has been better than Max Fried's last 4 or 5. And if I were the Braves, I would invest that money somewhere else. I might even explore a trade to try to bring in another high quality arm like they did with Chris Sale. But again, and then the lineup just wasn't good enough. When you don't have Austin Riley, you don't have Acuna. And I know they won the World Series 3 years ago or so without Acuna, but that was just a special run.
Right.
Usually doesn't happen. And again, Ozzie Albies was out there competing, but he's not completely right. He can't even switch hit. And then really the only bat that showed up in the 2 quick games was Money Michael Harris. He looked like himself, even though he's missed some time with injury. But, they just – and then Matt Olson had a good second half of the season to salvage the year for himself, but he didn't have the kind of year they needed either.
Right.
Really the only one that had from game 1 to game 164, because that's how many they played, was Ozuna. Ozuna had a great, year. Now, he didn't have a great playoff, but hell, the whole lineup didn't. And I actually thought the Braves bullpen in both games was pretty good. It's just you're not going to win a short series like that when both your starting pitchers are basically done after the second inning.
Yeah. No, you're right.
They didn't get deep enough in the games. And again, Max Fried, I give you a salute.
Here is Max Fried after the game on what it means, though, to be in a Braves uniform.
I know the emotions are raw right now, Max, but what has it meant to you to wear that Braves uniform, whatever happens down the road?
It's to me it means everything. It's the organization that traded for me and gave me an opportunity to come to the big leagues and be an established big league player. And everyone from my teammates here, day in, day out, coaching staff, front office, organization, fan, city. Obviously don't know what's going to happen, but I've absolutely, loved every minute of it and hope to have many more.
Very, very soft-spoken, Max Fried.
Great athlete, actually swings the bat well for a pitcher, runs well. But I just think he's going to price himself out of Atlanta, or he would have already signed an extension. But again, his durability has come into question. And then Charlie Morton's future, is he going to finally retire? Because again, you're talking about a guy that's 41 years old or so.
Yeah.
And it's had a tremendously long major league career. And really had a under the radar great career. And so if they both are gone, then if you're the Braves, you have some young guys like Hurston Waldrop and AJ Smith-Schaffner who started the first game of the series. You got some young cats that you really like, and Schellenbach, his development this year. But if you're the Braves, you're probably definitely going to be in the running for some starting pitching.
Charlie Morton, you bring up Charlie Morton after the game last night. Charlie Morton said, "I'm soon to be a 41-year-old husband and a father of 4. My wife's been raising our kids by herself. Our oldest is 11. All these years that have gone by, we've been a baseball family. I've been gone for a lot of it. That's where my head and heart is at."
Well, 41. Now he's had amazing durability because he hasn't had a lot of arm trouble at all. And he went full circle, kind of starting with the Braves and then leaving and having that kind of career. So, kudos to Charlie. I don't blame him. 4 kids and earned a ton of money in the game, should be set up financially. And he'll be leaving the game, healthy.
Yeah.
He didn't get a chance to pitch in this series, and I think the Braves have known since, the beginning of this season, this was likely it for Charlie. So he was making $20 million a year. So you have that money in theory to go out and address your pitching. And the thing is, with some of these young arms, we also saw out of the bullpen, the Braves have some nice pieces in their pen. So the bullpen should be set up. We'll see about AJ Minter because we hadn't really mentioned him, but he's another one that, went on the disabled list or injured list, whatever you want to call it, for twice. So, and he's another veteran reliever. So I think the Braves look pretty good from a bullpen perspective. They just need to tweak their starting pitching, and then, it'll be interesting to see what they do with left field because Kelenic, he's a 4th or 5th outfielder. He's not a starter. I didn't think he produced nearly well enough. They've tried platooning over there. We'll see. I know they've got the young guy Eli White who's came up through the minor leagues, but if you're the Braves, you're certainly not spending the Padres and the Dodgers money, the way they do, or the Yankees. But you've got some creative things you can do, and there's trade and there'll probably be a couple of free agent targets that they may look to. And then, they've got Sean Murphy didn't have the kind of year they wanted, but he missed a third of the season hurt too. You've got him under contract. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Darno. I don't know I can't remember if he has a year left on his deal or if he's going to be a free agent, but he's a great clubhouse guy and seems very comfortable because he's in his mid-30s as well, being a number 2 guy, catching where, you're not catching every day and you can kind of rotate back there. So Braves still got a bright future. Just need to get a little healthy. And really, it's remarkable they made the playoffs, considering most organizations with what the Braves lost, including only having Strider for 2 starts and then losing Acuna by the second month, and then all these other guys going down. They lost more games to injury than any team in baseball. Most would not have won 89 games and still managed to even get in the tournament. So good year for Atlanta. Just got to retool.
All right. So the rest of it, say adios to the Houston Astros.
Oh, and yes, the thing, man. The Padres won with the other 3 underdogs. Well, if the Mutts win, we hope
the
they
Mets
don't.
have to play
Let's
today.
go Brewers. Let's go Brewers.
Yeah, the Royals say adios to the Baltimore Orioles. They gone.
That's what happened when you cut Craig Kimbrell. You go into the crapper.
So the Royals are through. The Tigers are through. The Mets and Brewers will play today in a winner-take-all Game 3. That one is set for 6
The
o'clock
Mets almost
tonight.
pulled that off, man. That was
Yeah.
a little bit of a late collapse in the 8th inning, or all 3 of the other underdogs would have won. So, and I guess I thought I was reading into this that it was because of the weather and the Braves had to play on Monday. But I guess all these series, there's the team with the home field is playing everything.
Yeah, everyone's playing at home. When you have that is the one advantage they give
the higher seed
to the higher seed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So.
And the thing is, though, if the Braves would have gotten through, somehow managed to put together a rotation, put together an order, somehow to get through the Padres, the Dodgers were looming on the other side.
Yes.
So, I mean, the road would have been
nearly impossible.
Tougher, yeah.
I mean, I hate them.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hate them sons of guns.
I mean, I hate them
Yes.
SOBs.
Yes.
But it just would have been really hard for the Braves to compete with that roster. Now they had some success against the Dodgers in the regular season, but it's also about how you're playing now. And the Braves rotation was just a little bit short.
And in the playoffs too, the Dodgers have been able to enjoy some downtime.
Oh. Yeah.
So
Dodgers
their
and Phillies just
rotations
sitting over
up.
there. Yeah, just sitting over there waiting.
Rotations are lined up. Everything is going. Now we've seen that come to a disadvantage at times where you sit and then all of a sudden you got to play and the team coming in hot on the wild card.
That's what makes baseball so unpredictable,
That's why
the Tigers are.
You gotta like the Tigers going.
Yeah,
forward.
Wolverine Dan's got to be going nuts right now.
I mean, they're playing great baseball. They played great baseball down the back half of the stretch. They're coming in hot.
Yeah.
We've seen like the Nationals, the Braves. You come into situations like this, and then all of a sudden you start playing good in the wild card. You take a team by surprise.
Yeah. Even though they lost last night, you think about the Mets.
Yeah,
I mean, they've been the best team in that division, basically since the first 2 months of the season. They've been.
Does that hurt you to say that?
I mean,
the Mets,
the Mets. But I mean, and then I thought they were going to win last night until that rook, hit the 2-run homer. I mean,
so Sports Center had a graphic this morning that the Detroit Tigers, 28-man roster, or 28-man roster is like $18 million, their payroll. Josh Hader, who came in, the closer for the Astros, is making $19 million.
I was going to say
this season. And he gives up a bases clearing triple or double to give the Tigers the lead there. It was tied at 2. So,
well, again, what have I said a million times? Even though the Dodgers and the Yankees have these unbelievable $400 million payroll, it doesn't mean squat. I mean, if everybody goes into a slump or whatever, that's the equalizer with baseball. Most of the time you'd say the most talented team wins, but sometimes it's a young team that doesn't know any better, or it's a team like the Diamondbacks last year get all the way to the World Series. Nobody thought that was coming. And then, sometimes it's a squad that just gets hot. Like you mentioned the Nationals a few years ago, because they were one of the last teams in as far as a wild card, but they won the World Series.
Right.
And then the Braves, nobody had them winning in 21. So I don't think the Braves have won a playoff game since then in the 3 years, but it is what it is. That's why you just have to keep building and keep getting to the tournament and hope one day the pieces fall into place.
All right, let's get that break in. When we come back, let's get out to the phone lines. Oh, we did get a text message in this morning that somebody else says they are not a fan of the Mutts, but they do have 3 former Florida Gators on the team. And so he's, kind of forced to have to.
Well, one of them is Pete Alonso. He's probably going to be gone with the wind once they, lose, because the Mets have money, but they've never been able to come to a free agent agreement with the Polar Bear.
The wind. Now there's a movie.
Yeah,
there's a movie for you.
Frankly, I don't give a damn.
Let's get a break in. Oh, talking ball. We'll get out to the phone lines coming up next. 256-576-4977.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Just one accident reported so far this morning. That one's in Leeton in Lawrence County, Highway 20 near County Line. Maybe a few more minutes before that one's cleared up. Everything else seems to be in order this morning. I don't see any major problems. You be careful on your trip in. Need help on a temp project or maybe finding a new employee? Snelling can assist. They also do background checks, computer assessment, and payroll. Huntsville.snelling.com. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
If you work in a dangerous or logistically intense industry, you know good training can be a challenge. There are training costs, safety concerns, and difficulty replicating real-world scenarios. There's a better way used right now in the Army and in all our armed services to better prepare our heroes, and it's available to you in your organizations. Higher Echelon's Game Development Team is revolutionizing learning in military training, dangerous industry, STEM, and sports performance domains with cutting-edge virtual training that immerses you in lifelike scenarios without the cost and safety concerns for trainees. With Higher Echelon's game-based training, you'll experience realistic simulations, precision accuracy, and unparalleled safety. Higher Echelon founder Dr. Joe Ross is retired Army who played and later coached for the cadets and puts that experience to use. His team has been building cutting-edge virtual training environments for soldiers and clients for a decade. Higher Echelon, the name you can trust for advanced training solutions. Reach out at higherechelon.com to get your free consultation. Go Higher and go Army.
You don't have to go somewhere else just so you can go somewhere new. Plan your next vacation with Huntsville International Airport and Breeze Airways. Enjoy friendly, convenient, nonstop travel to some of the most exciting destinations in the U.S., including the home of iconic casinos, world-class shows, dining, and entertainment. Las Vegas. With flights starting as low as just $79, Breeze has got you covered with easy, breezy, nonstop flights to Las Vegas. Book nonstop to Las Vegas now at flybreeze.com.
Forgiveness. Wow, what a word. What a gift. All of us have done things in our lives that we regret. All of us have done things that are disobedient. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Thank God for his forgiveness. Thank God that he separates our sins as far as the east is from the west and remembers them no more. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor at Cross Point Church, smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison. Check us out at cpcfamily.org.
Hi, folks. Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford, inviting you to come test drive any one of our over 100 F-150s. From rock-solid, dependable work trucks to our state-of-the-art Platinum Series, we've got an F-150 for you. Test drive one today, and you'll understand why the F-150 is the best-selling truck in America, going on 48 years in a row. Just as successful offenses and defenses are built on teamwork, Woody Anderson Ford is powered by our people. Our sales and service teams are well-trained to save you time and money. And because we want your business again and again, no one will work harder to earn it. Our mobile service teams come to your home or business for oil changes, brake work, tire rotations, and more. And the great thing is you don't pay extra for it. We come to you with mobile service at no extra charge. Proud to be local, family-owned, and at your service for over 62 years. Woody Anderson Ford, Alabama's F-150 Superstore.
Welcome back. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond on a Thursday morning. Don't forget, head on over to zonedeals.bigdealsmedia.net so you can actually take advantage of our new zone deals. We mentioned that we do everything bigger and better around here. And right now we have got a slew. I told you it was going to be a store. It's a store now. You got Metro Diner, Sea Salt, Bubby's Diner, Coraleos, Bad Daddy's, and Flow. We got 6 of them on there now. So you never know
A
what's going to pop up.
smorgasbord.
Yeah, it is a smorgasbord.
A what?
Smorgasbord.
It is.
Smorgasbord.
Yeah.
So Metro Diner, and we'll be out there next Friday for breakfast, and we'll be out there because they are part of the Zone Deal family. So we'll be out there with Jonathan and partake in all of that. We got Sea Salt, we got Bubby's Diner, we got Coraleos, we got Bad Daddy's. So go to zonedeals.bigdealsmedia.net or head to our webpage, 977espn.com. Click on Zone Deals, and they can get there. Buy these all. It's the exact same thing. We did not change how we do the deals. We did not change the deals. They're still, you buy 2 $25 gift certificates for $25. You get $50 worth of food for $25. We didn't change any of that. We just made it bigger and we made it better. 256-576-4977. You can be a part of the show, the conversation this morning. Jeff from the Borough is with us. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning, Jeff.
Hey, I was going to say the graph they showed last night was that the Braves are 2-8 in their last 10 postseason games. 2-8. That's the record that they were after the 2 losses. Because there was a guy for yesterday called the show. He said he had heard that they thought they were going to fire Stitcher, and the other guy, the host, said well, he wouldn't be surprised if Stitcher retired because he's close to 70. Wouldn't be surprised if he just mailed it in and retired because of his age and all that. So, do you think he'll do that?
No,
I don't. I really don't, and he shouldn't be fired either. People that saying Brian Stigger should be fired should give themselves a lobotomy because, he did a great job with that ball club considering what they had available, both pitching and in the lineup. He's a lifer, and I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if he managed out his contract. He probably may not sign another extension, but certainly he's earned the right to decide when he wants to retire. He potentially, I guess he could, but I wouldn't think so, and I don't think he deserves to, be forced out.
There's only so much gum, duct tape, glue, whatever you can use to put together a team that you can actually use. He used everything he had. And
He's just talking about the last one. But I was going to say, when did this go 2 out of 3? The wild card series.
I want to say, was it 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago?
It used to be one game. I don't know why I know why they did it. More games, more money, extend the season. That's why they did it. It should be one game, but like I said, they don't ask me. It should be a 1-game playoff. It should be because, like I say, they don't have tiebreakers anymore for divisions either. If it's tied, they don't do tiebreakers on that either. But it should be 1 game. If you can't win 1 game, then you don't. 2 out. What's next? 4 out of 7. We'll go 4 out of 7 for the wild card. Keep extending it.
So they tried it in 2020, and it became permanent in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they can permanent. I won't do that. It messed up anyway. But I'm sure y'all talked about Pete Rose's death too. But I did want to ask Drew. Did you see where Drew that recruit Caleb Wilson is canceling his trip to Alabama this weekend for basketball? Did you see that?
That's been trending for a while. Once he postponed it the first time, then Alabama had 4 or 5 stars on campus last week. I haven't thought Caleb Wilson was coming to Alabama.
Yeah, they said he's going to North Carolina this weekend. He's going to Georgia Tech in a couple of weeks, but I know he really liked Kentucky. That's how I don't know, but I said there was some part yesterday. He was on KSR or something, and he got interest by a bunch of different schools, including Alabama. And I guess they wanted to decommit, and he said no, he's not going to decommit. He's definitely going to Kentucky. And he wouldn't. Whatever school was interested in him, he wasn't going there. But he's like a defensive lineman from Georgia. He's like about 6'5", offensive tackle. They've got 18 commits now for football, as far as the football class, because it's one of the best classes. Well, I don't know about that, but as far as rankings, because I don't get the star system. I don't play that star mess. I don't play that stuff. I mean, you don't win. You don't win recruiting championships. That's not enough. We don't have trophies for that. I mean, you got to prove it on the field. So as far as that goes, but as far as the Browns, that's what that guy said. But no, it's up to me. It'd be 1 game playoffs. Like I said, if you can't win 1 game, then you don't need to be in the playoffs anyway. So, but have a good one, guys. See you.
Thanks, Jeff. By the way, there's only been 2 wild card series that have gone to a decisive game 3.
Game 3
since 2022. So
I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, it's quick turnaround stuff, but it's drama. I mean, I guess they just added around to the postseason.
I think what it was is the teams like the Padres,
right,
and the Astros this season, and whoever, if you've earned the right to be at home, it's better than just 1 game. It's like, okay, generally the better team is going to prevail in a 3-game wild card series.
Yeah.
And, if the Braves would have caught lightning in a bottle and gone out to the West Coast and beat the Padres in 1 game, and it would have been like, okay, was that really a wild card series? It's just a wild card game.
Well, and logistics for travel is a nightmare if you in a short series like that. If you're gonna, especially think about having to fly if you're the Braves, you fly 4 hours or whatever to San Diego, and then you have to, if you win the first game, win or lose, then you fly back to Atlanta, then play a game, then fly back to San Diego. It's nuts. It does give the higher seeded team, as you pointed out when we were talking about it coming off the show, the home field advantage. In other words, you get all 3 games, and if it goes 3 in your ballpark, if it goes 2, it's over. So
right,
it's a quick turnaround. It's tough, but hey, it is what it is. At least you got a chance to be in the tournament.
All right, 7:27 coming up here in just a few minutes. We will shift the attention to college football. And there was some recruiting news yesterday. If you have followed the Auburn Tigers, if you followed their home games lately, and they've had a bunch of them because they've not been on the road all season, Deuce Knight has been a regular visitor to the Auburn Tigers. Now, Deuce originally committed to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Yep.
But yesterday, the Auburn Tigers got the news that I think some people expected, but this is why lots of times when you get and you have a kid that commits in today's NIL world and everything else, you hold your breath until that kid signs on the dotted line, because Deuce Knight flipped his commitment from Notre Dame to Auburn.
He did, and I think a lot of people were, as you said, he's been if you've been following his recruitment, he's, as you already pointed out to the listeners, he's been a frequent visitor on campus on the Plains, and he's a long-time Notre Dame commit. But it is, as you know, and last year it was interesting with him before they busted him and basically put him on probation. He transferred to Lipscomb Academy right before his senior season to play for them over in the Nashville area, and then that season kind of blew up on them, and he transferred back into his high school in Lucedale, Mississippi, and committed to Notre Dame in the process. But since that period of time, Auburn and Hugh Freeze have turned up the heat. They've recruited a few different quarterbacks. They were in the Juju Lewis sweepstakes for a while, but I think that ended up being too rich for their blood. And Deuce Knight's also been wearing Auburn paraphernalia, like having an Auburn towel on during his high school games. And I think, and you've heard Brian Matthews on our show hint strongly at it. I think they've been expecting this for almost the last 45 to 60 days. And so it was just a matter of time when they were going to, flip him. And I know Auburn was actually expecting it earlier than this, so it took some time. And so, but he's finally flipped officially. It's a little bit unusual just simply because a lot of times the way a recruiting class is built, one of the first pieces is the quarterback, and then you kind of build around it. But Auburn has, attacked the state of Alabama hard. They've signed, they're set to sign the majority of the top 15 players in the state, and then they've cherry picked, around the southeast for the rest of the class, but they needed a quarterback. They felt like they needed one, and certainly Deuce Knight is kind of fits the profile Hugh Freeze is looking for. Does that mean that Auburn's not going to go into the portal and get a quarterback? I still think that wouldn't be a shock to me. And I think, we know Peyton Thorne's done. Okay, after this
Peyton
year,
Thorne's gone.
He's gone, and I think Hank Brown will be at Liberty or wherever the hell.
You think Hank Brown will go? What about Holden Grenier or whatever?
Greyhound.
Gone?
Both of them on a Greyhound. So I just think they're both going to be, because look, if you're Hank Brown and you're a redshirt freshman and they're if they start flirting with guys in the portal and they've already brought in Deuce Knight, you read the writing on the wall. You need to go somewhere else. He'd already been committed to Liberty. Don't know how well he knows that coaching staff over there. I'm just saying a group of 5 type school. And then with Gariner, he wasn't even recruited by Hugh Freeze. This was a guy that was signed by Harsin. So I think both of them will be gone. Now we'll see with Walker White, who's a true freshman who they really like, who's redshirting. I think they would probably like to keep him. I think they think he has a ton of potential. And again, was recruited by this coaching staff.
Right.
So I just think the quarterback room will look a lot different at Auburn in the spring and then on into next fall.
Well, is Auburn done? Will they go out and find anybody else to flip? Caleb Jones will join us next as we talk a little Auburn football recruiting. It's Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Sounds like we've got a wreck near Scottsboro, 35-79. That one sounds like it's going to be an injury type. Maybe working with one near Leeton, Highway 20 in County Line Road. That one's been in for a while, so it should be clearing soon. With more than 30 years experience, D&L Refrigeration can save you money on those heating and air conditioning repairs. 256-652-1207. State license 08091. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
Rich Eisen here from Monday Night Football on Westwood One. Join us all season long as we get you ready for primetime NFL action every Monday night. Along with Kevin Harlan, Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, and the entire Westwood One team will take you inside the locker rooms and the stadiums for exclusive previews and all the play-by-play action. Every week on Monday Night Football.
Right here on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
You need a lawyer and pick up the phone. I'm attorney Gary Lackey. When you call for a lawyer, where does that phone ring? My phone rings in my office.
I'm attorney Justin Lackey. My phone rings in my office too.
So does mine. I'm attorney Jennifer Lackey. And when you've been hurt and need help, we're the ones who take your call.
The Lackey Law Firm. The Lackey Law Family. 1-800-4RIGHTS.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
By now, you know about Eagle Masonry and Insulation, and maybe you know that Eagle also does landscaping and dirt work. But how about after paint work? Shower doors, shelving, and mirrors, all taken care of by Eagle, the same Eagle that takes care of all your masonry, insulation, and landscaping needs. Eagle brings the same level of expertise to all these disciplines, and they're ready to provide you with a free quote. The website is the same, insulatewitheagle.com, as is the phone number, 256-755-1556. Give them a call and see what Eagle can do for you. Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money.
Continue to happen. We want that to happen.
All right, welcome back. Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. Welcome back into the program on a Thursday morning. And right before the break there, we were talking about Auburn flipping Deuce Knight from Notre Dame to Auburn. Yep. That'll vault the Auburn Tigers up there in that 2025 recruiting rankings. Yep. It'll put them up there to number 3. But now the question is Auburn done? Is there any more out there that they might be able to flip? What does this mean going forward for Auburn? And just what are they getting in Deuce Knight?
Yeah, we're going to talk to our next guest. He's joined us frequently, does a great job covering recruiting for AuburnSports.com, part of the Rivals Network. We've, of course, talked to his colleague, Brian Matthews, this week. And Brian has strongly hinted to us that this was coming down the pike. And Caleb Jones, who does a great job with Rivals, has been kind enough to get up this morning on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline and join us to talk about this huge piece of the puzzle, literally and figuratively, for Auburn. And welcome back, Caleb. How are you, man? You were Drew and Scott.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, man. And is it fair to say that I said this before we went to break, that for the last 45 to 60 days, this has kind of been something that's been lurking, that people were not surprised at all? Matter of fact, I think it took a little longer than people were anticipating, but a huge step for Auburn.
Yeah, man. I would say this is definitely something that's kind of been a long time coming. This is something that they've really been working on since the middle of the summer, I guess. I think things really started to pick up in late June here. And then, he's back on campus for the first time in a long time back in July. You get him back for a bunch of games, and you finally got your guy on board.
So what exactly, I mean, there's a lot of Auburn fans that are like, okay, we've seen the rankings. We've seen, how high this guy is ranked. But what exactly are we getting in Deuce?
Well, you're getting a leader of your class now, somebody that has a lot of pull, I think, with other recruits. I think a lot of guys will look at a class and, I mean, they want to know who's going to be the quarterback of that class. They want to know who's kind of leading the charge on offense. Alvin Henderson's done a great job as kind of the lead recruiter, per se, the unofficial voice of the 25 class, but you've kind of got your headliner, you've got your big name now. The quarterback position is always, really looked at, I think, and as far as determining how good a class is. But Auburn's getting, as far as a player, they're getting somebody who's still a couple years away, I think. I don't think this is a guy that's going to come in and automatically be a starter next season by any means. I think you're getting a guy that, give him a year or so, and then you're going to find your future here. He fits what Hugh Freeze wants in a quarterback, somebody that can run a little bit, fit that RPO scheme that Freeze really likes to run. So I think you got your guy in Deuce Knight. This is a huge win for the Tigers.
Yeah, and then I know we said number 3. That's actually, I guess it was number 3 in the on-3 composite, but it's still number 4 in Rivals. So what we're saying is right now this is a consensus top 5 class for Auburn, and they're not done yet. They've got a few more pieces I think they would like to add, but getting the quarterback to build the rest of the class around is certainly huge. It certainly reassures everyone that they're filling that need. And, it also, as you talked about his being a developmental prospect, I know he spent a little time at Lipscomb Academy last year before returning to George County High School in Lucedale, Mississippi. And the thing about him is, just kind of studying him, Caleb, is he's got a ton of athletic ability. I mean, he's got really good size. I know he's about 6'4", but he's got like a 42-inch vertical, considered to have a very strong arm. So even if they have to redshirt the kid and develop him somewhat, like a Jalen Milroe, I guess that's the best way to phrase it. Milroe was very, very raw coming out of Katy, Texas, and Tompkins High School, and now we see what he's developed into.
Yeah, Deuce is definitely a very raw prospect. Somebody who once he gets in the program, once he gets kind of coached up a little bit, get him adjusted a little bit to the speed of the game, because the college game is just so much faster and so different from the high school school game. It does take some time, especially at the quarterback position. It can take some time to kind of figure it out, because you get thrown kind of into the fire sometimes, and it'll really backfire. It hurts your confidence sometimes. So this is somebody that Auburn, I would expect to kind of make sure that they take their time in the right way and try not to rush into anything that would essentially set him up to fail.
And I mean, he comes in, he was the overall top performer from the Elite 11. He's had good other showings as well. But I mean, you say quarterback of the future. I mean, this is a guy that Hugh Freeze can definitely, I think, can try to build an offensive around maybe in a year. But what do they do then in that short term? If he's probably a year away, does Auburn still go out and look for somebody for that quarterback spot?
Yeah, I'm absolutely expecting Auburn to go after a top transfer quarterback this portal season. Whoever's available, whoever some of the top guys are, I am definitely expecting Auburn to be very interested and go out and get a transfer guy, probably a guy that has 1 year. That way they can get a year of that transfer guy, see how the other guys come along, and then really hash it out and have a battle for the 2026 season.
And then we haven't had you on since they flipped him too, but another huge flip for Auburn from Miami, and that's on the defensive side, was Elijah Melendez. I know they, much like Deuce, they spent a long time recruiting him. They started in the summer, kind of really turning up the heat on him. I know he committed to Miami in that interim time, but they kept working him, and they flipped him a couple weeks ago. Talk about Melendez and his potential, because I'm going to tell you what, out of his pads, he looks like a Greek god, and I know he's very, very athletic as well.
Well, his nickname is the Freak, and
he looks like one.
Yeah, he does. He's a good looking dude as far as what you want when you're looking for a linebacker. He fits a lot of those needs. This is a kid that likes Auburn too. A kid that just from Kissimmee, Florida, but he's been to a bunch of Auburn games this fall already, and that's not a short drive. He wants to be on campus, and that is a phenomenal flip for DJ Durkin and the staff on defense to keep working him and just keep going after him and you get one of your top defenders in the 25 class out of him.
Does Auburn flip their attention to Naeem Offord now? Does he become a big prime target for them?
He's always been a big prime target for them, if I'm being honest. He's probably that number one guy now that you're not on Deuce. I think he's probably the top name that's going to attract a lot of attention from everybody, and just going to be kind of like, all right, well, who's the next big flip guy? And it's like, all right, well, let's go after Naeem Offord. Is kind of what you're thinking if you're Auburn. I mean, they've been going after him extremely hard since the summer. They've had him on campus several times. It's going to be interesting. This is going to be something I think is going to be a little bit more drawn out. I don't see a final decision coming anytime soon, whether Offord decides to stick with his commitment to Ohio State, which he's had since I think February. I know he's also entertaining Oregon, Auburn, LSU is also somewhat in the picture here. So this is a recruitment that I don't think is close to being over or anything like that. I think Auburn's really going to have to keep working him, because I mean, this is big dog recruiting now. Auburn, you are right in there. You're right in there with the Ohio States, with the Oregons, and you're going to have to work to pull something off like this. But I will say, I think having a quarterback in the class now does give you a little bit of a boost. Definitely gives you momentum, because now, like, that's kind of been the biggest question mark this season. If we watch any Auburn games here, that's kind of been the biggest, I'd say, struggle position, right? The quarterback play has been it's been here and there and all over the place, the interceptions, turnovers, whatever. Well, that now you've got a guy that can come in and essentially be your program quarterback for the next couple of years once he gets developed. And so you've kind of set the foundation with Deuce Knights, and now that kind of becomes part of your pitch.
I know it's kind of a broad question, and Scott just address the Naeem Offord situation, because he's the top prospect in the state of Alabama. Long-time commitment to Ohio State, but as you said, far from over. Auburn has been pushing him hard, and you just mentioned some of the other schools that are Oregons and the LSUs of the world that are trying to flip him. But is there another position of need? Like Auburn has 25 commits, but we know that you can sign over that many now. I know they've also been in the mix for some elite offensive linemen. Is that maybe the next position other than Offord, where they might still be trying to reel in some more big fish?
Yeah, I feel confident that Auburn will get at least one more offensive lineman added to this 2025 class. There are a bunch of options out there. A couple of them that come to mind right now. Andrew Babalola.
Yeah, he's one. Yep.
He's the top 100 prospect that we've got him on our ranking. That's I think that's the number one target right now. If you're Auburn, you gotta go after Babalola. That's a tough battle. Just because Babalola, he's a really smart kid. He is very focused on not just football but the academic side of things, which is why I think why Stanford is getting such a big look from Babalola. Michigan's up there. That's a tough battle that a lot of people thought, all right, it could be over at some point soon, back in July. A lot of people thought, all right, well, it's August, maybe it'll be over soon. I'm not really sure when this thing could get wrapped up, but Auburn's going to keep pushing, and you best believe they're going to say, come protect one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country.
Well, and I know you cover recruiting as a whole, so we'll get your thoughts on it too. We're excited here in Huntsville. We had him on the show this past Friday after he committed publicly, but how much excitement is around Bruce Pearl and their program. First piece of it, I know they're going to sign multiple players, but Simon Walker here in our backyard committing to Auburn and going to be a big piece of this 25 class on the basketball side, where, of course, we know Auburn is a consensus top 15 team in the country.
Yeah, I don't do much basketball recruiting or anything like that. That's all Henry Patton. But
right,
everything that I've read about this guy is it's a really good pickup for Bruce Pearl and his program, especially snagging a guy that's right there in your backyard out of Huntsville. So a good pickup for Auburn and Bruce for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Is because of the schedule, Auburn does not have a home game now for another month, football-wise. Yeah. I mean, did they take full – I mean, how much did they load up in these first 5 games or whatever at home to try to get everything in because of how crazy and how weird this schedule sets up?
Yeah, I know they had a bunch of on-campus official visitors this past weekend too.
Yeah, I mean, when the 25 schedule came out, man, I was looking at it and I was like, I don't think that I don't think that does great. That's not great news, I think, for Auburn, just because it's hard to space these visits out. If a kid goes to see Auburn, maybe they're like, all right, well, I've seen Auburn. I don't need to see Auburn for a while, right? But there's no home game in October, so maybe a kid goes and sees a game in September, and then they're not going to be able to get back until November. So I don't think that does it's not great for Auburn to have that huge amount of time without a home game. It gives other schools more opportunities to host maybe some of the guys that you're after. But yes, they did take advantage of those 5 home games in a row. Every home game was a very impressive visitor list. You had your busiest official visitors. You had your busiest weekend of official visitors this past weekend. You had 3 commits and Deuce Knight. Wide receiver commit to Georgia Tech, Sam Turner, was supposed to official visit this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
However, Hurricane Helene kind of affected his game and his high school game. It got moved to the Saturday, so he was unable to make it. But talking with some folks, I feel very confident that thing will be rescheduled. So that's another target that they're after. But as far as the schedule goes, you just gotta. I think Auburn took advantage of the month that they had, and now it's just like you gotta turn your head and get ready for November, because you're gonna have 3 opportunities in November to get guys back on campus.
And that could turn into an advantage considering the early December signing date. So at least you'll be able to load up and get some guys on campus for the stretch of the season where Auburn is trying to get back and into the postseason. Well, Caleb, man, great stuff, great insight into Deuce Knight. It's a big piece of the puzzle. 25 commitments, and now they're a consensus top 5 class, but number 4 in the Rivals.com rankings, which is, of course, your employer with AuburnSports.com. But let everybody know how to connect with you and continue to follow your football recruiting coverage.
Yeah, like you said, I'm over at AuburnSports.com, home of the bunker, notoriously known as the best message board in the history of the internet. So come check us out there. If you want to follow me on Twitter/X, I am found at CalebJ_rivals. So at CalebJ_rivals. Post all my stories there, and of course on auburnsports.com.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Let's get a break in, shall we? When we come back and wrap up this whole hour number one thing, it's Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Got a couple of wrecks on the board. One on 20 at County Line Road in Leeton. Should be about ready to move. And we've got 35 and 79 out of Scottsboro. That one sounded like it might have an injury, and Bob may still be working on it. Officers, construction workers, and first responders are putting their lives on the line every time they step on the roadway. You can make it safer for them. Slow down or move over. It's the law. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
Tom Luganville here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
Next time you're online looking for landscaping inspiration, open Instagram and check out Southern Gent Landscaping. They can help make your yard your dream outdoor oasis. Southern Gent Landscaping can handle it all, from landscape maintenance and installation to irrigation and hardscapes, even AstroTurf. Turn your yard into a landscape you'll be proud to show off. Call Southern Gent Landscaping at 256-509-6088. 509-6088. Southern Gent Landscaping. Professional landscaping performed with satisfaction guaranteed. Ann Adams with Berkshire Hathaway Rise Real Estate is the one name to know if you're buying or selling real estate. With years of local experience, Ann Adams offers buyers in-depth knowledge of the local housing market and will narrow available properties down to those you'll be interested in so you can save time when shopping for your new home. If you're ready to sell, Ann offers a seamless process using accurate pricing and expert negotiation skills to make sure you get a fair price for your home. Call Ann Adams today at 256-337-2625 or log on bhhsriserealestate.com. You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
There's another one.
Welcome back. Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. Welcome back into the program. Hour number one. Quickly winding down here. And we talked a little bit. We mentioned South Carolina. We mentioned Ole Miss a little bit ago yesterday. I kind of talked about it yesterday.
Yep.
But the line all of a sudden has shot up to an 11.5-point favorite in Ole Miss's favor because the injury report came out for South Carolina.
Yesterday. Yeah.
And Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders now have both been listed as questionable for the game on Saturday. Ole Miss went up to an 11.5-point spread as soon as that injury report came out.
Well, I mean, if neither one of them play, it's going to be a beat down. You know, I think Ole Miss will come in angry, and I think they'll handle South Carolina. South Carolina had their moment in the sun against Kentucky, and then really probably should have beaten LSU because LSU, couldn't tackle me. But I don't know, man. If Ole Miss is talented, and they did let one get away from them on Saturday, they really should have won in Oxford. But I think there is still a talent gulf between these two teams. And if Ole Miss, I haven't seen Lane Kiffin's injury report. I
didn't see Ole Miss's. I did
Ole Miss.
See
It's
South
probably going to
Carolina's.
be very. I mean, I want to say he listed just about everybody on the injury report last week. Did Lane, but I would think that I definitely would take Ole Miss in this contest. I still think South Carolina is a ways away and is probably going to have problems making a bowl game.
Coming up at the top of the hour, we will continue the college football conversation, and we will deal with Ole Miss because Brett Norsworthy will join the show, and we'll got to figure out how Ole Miss will rebound from last week's disappointing in their eyes, disappointing loss to Kentucky. Now, if you're Kentucky, you're saying, well, we weren't going to let one get away. We let the Georgia game get away. We weren't letting Ole Miss get away, and they got a road win. Ranked road win for Kentucky. So what does Ole Miss do there? Speaking of where do you go from here? The Deep South's oldest rivalry will renew on Saturday as Auburn will travel to Georgia. And in case you are wondering, and in case you are thinking about putting some money down on the Dogs, Georgia, after a loss under Kirby Smart, they are 11-3 straight up, 9-5 against the spread. Georgia, by the way, 24.5-point favorites against the Auburn Tigers. So just in case you want to put some money down on the Dogs Saturday to bark and growl and howl against the Auburn Tigers, there you go. It gives you a little something. All right, Wolverine Dan with us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. I put my money down to the Tigers before they started. How about that last night? Clutch.
Yeah.
Clutch.
No doubt.
Coming down there against Houston. I mean, the guy that they broke the tie, I mean, Hader's making $19 million. The 28-man roster for the Tigers is making like 18.
You got to love it. I mean, these guys are so young, and they've never been to this position. Coming back with the record they had at the beginning of the year, it's just awesome, dude. You know what a great year. Natty for me. I got both of my teams in the playoffs, or the Lions will be in the playoffs, I should say. I don't really see them not making the playoffs. But then, we're leaving here downriver, and I'm going to a wedding in Grand Rapids. But on the way, we're going to stop at the big house. They're supposed to be, my son was just here about a month ago. He says to me, there's a big banner that says National Champions in front of the stadium. I got to get a picture with that.
Right. There you go.
You guys have had those before. Come on, man. I'm still celebrating, fellas.
Well, you can celebrate. Well, you still get to.
When you crown another champion, it'll be over, and then I'll shut my mouth.
Okay,
but,
there you go. You've earned the right. Well, Michigan's earned the right to celebrate. Yes, fans have earned the right to
keep
celebrate.
Keep that DVD, bro.
Yep. By the way, you know who? Thanks for the call. You know who manages the Detroit Tigers?
AJ Hinch, right?
AJ Hinch,
who they fired,
who was suspended for the year because of the sign stealing stuff in Houston.
Who cares? Everybody's stealing signs. Get over it.
Brett Norsworthy doesn't steal signs. He's next.
This is Brent Musburger's VSiN Action Update on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Check out VSiN's catalog of original podcasts, daily and weekly programming to keep you in the know when you're on the go. Only at VSIN.com. Now, here are the latest lines from my guys in the desert.
Major League Baseball wildcard action on Wednesday. 3 teams have advanced. The Tigers eliminated the Astros with a 5-2 win. The Royals beat the Orioles 2-1. The Padres knocked off the Braves with a 5-4 win. Meanwhile, the Brewers rallied for a 5-3 win over the Mets. That sets up Game 3 tonight. It's a 7 Eastern first pitch in Milwaukee. Tobias Myers starts for the Brewers, while Jose Quintana is the scheduled starter for the Mets. New York plus 105. Milwaukee minus 125. Thursday night football, the 3-1 Buccaneers visit the 2-2 Falcons. Atlanta favored by 1.5. That's the VSiN Action Update on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. I'm Chuck Sanders.
WCZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
SportsMed is the official team physicians of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. And if the pros trust SportsMed, you can too. SportsMed provides every service you might need for complete orthopedic care, specializing in orthopedic surgery, sports medicine, joint replacement, spine surgery, neurosurgery, and podiatry. And they offer their own brace shop, in-house full-body MRI, physical therapy, walk-in clinic, and so much more. 4 locations and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com.
This hour brought to you by SportsMed Orthopedic and Spine Center. Online at sportsmedalabama.com. Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
It is hour 2, brought to you by our very good friends over at SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center. Of course, they're dedicated to providing care that improves lives. Of course, they're the official training providers of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. Of course, they're the official training providers of the UAH Chargers, all of which has a home right here on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone, and Talk Radio WZZN. So it is only fitting that they help us kick off hour number 2. And we talked about it. We talked about the injury report for South Carolina. Doesn't look good for Lenore Sellers. Doesn't look good for Rocket Sanders. Both listed as questionable. Now, we'll just have to wait because there will be one more. And that's the thing with these injury reports. Are you liking these injury reports that the SEC is putting out for conference games?
I mean, they're interesting. They create conversation. I don't mind them. I mean, it puts a little transparency to it. I mean, when a guy's questionable, I mean, just like last week, that was for Quay Russaw for Alabama. He ended up playing 24, 25 snaps, I believe, in the game and made one big play. So if a guy's questionable, I mean, he may or may not play. It's a little bit of a gamesmanship going on, but it's just like the NFL. And I don't mind it. At least that's the way you know if a guy is listed on the report that he might not play. More than likely, if you're probable, you're going to, but there's always that chance. So you kind of by Wednesday of the week, you know the guys to kind of monitor. So I don't mind it at all, and I definitely don't mind talking to our next guest. He is the longtime host of. Okay, I mean, okay. We'll get Brett Norsworthy here in a minute, and we'll get him on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline and talk some football with Brett Norsworthy. And but again, we'll get him on and talk some Ole Miss.
What do you want to see from Ole Miss this week?
Oh, I want to just see them bounce back and play good football. I mean, they had played really, really well up until the Kentucky game. Still played pretty good defense, really good enough to win the game, but they did not do enough offensively. And so they did not play well enough. They didn't possess the football. They weren't able to make first downs. And so we will definitely see, what happens with Ole Miss and if they can bounce back. Because as our good friend David Johnson of Rebels 247 wrote today, basically this is the playoffs going forward for Ole Miss because their margin for error has shrunk just considerably because Kentucky, you got to hope they continue to win,
right? And
that they become a solid bowl team because I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. But if they're an 8-win team, if they're a 9-win team, then in all likelihood, that's not going to be a huge mark on your resume.
Yeah. Well, that was the difference, when we did not have the college football playoffs, when we just had the 4 teams or the BCS. One loss pretty much puts you behind the 8 ball. Now you get that one loss, and it's almost like you get a mulligan. You get a little bit of a mulligan, and maybe Ole Miss got theirs against Kentucky, and now they've used it. Now they've got to go forward, and Brett Norsworthy now can help us out.
Yeah, he certainly can. He's one of our favorite guys, SEC historian, a long-time co-host of Sports Time from 3 to 6 on Sports Radio WHBQ in Memphis, Tennessee. He's also part of the Ole Miss Radio Network, pre- and post-game. Always enjoy catching up with him, and he's been kind enough to join us this morning on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Brett, man, it's great to have you back here in Huntsville. You're with Drew and Scott. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Great to be with you guys. Hey, Drew, good to be with you. Drew and Scott always.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And we were just talking about the unexpected loss because none of us saw it coming. I certainly did not, at home in Oxford to Kentucky. But this is a Kentucky team that really had a golden opportunity slip through their fingers against Georgia. They made a big fourth down play to beat Ole Miss, but Ole Miss is still very much alive in the conversation for a college football playoff berth, especially if Kentucky ends up being a solid football team, an 8-9 win team. If this is an 8-9 win team, then I don't think it's that glaring of a mark on the resume of Ole Miss, especially if the Rebels respond in the right way. But they've got to do that against South Carolina this weekend, which I think they will. I think this matchup for Kentucky is a good, for Ole Miss is a good one. Because I'm not a huge believer. I know South Carolina beat Kentucky, and people will say, but styles make fights, and sometimes you have a bad Saturday. I think Ole Miss certainly had one this past Saturday, and I think South Carolina played up to their capabilities against Kentucky on the road. And Kentucky kind of tends to have one of those games per year. But what are your thoughts on where Kentucky stands and Ole Miss? Because I think the Rebels right now are still in a pretty good position within the SEC. I certainly still have them ranked in my top 6 in my rankings within the league.
I don't share the optimism. I mean, we played 4 nobodies and handled them easily and should have. And then the first real challenge you get at home as a 16-point favorite. Look, we've all covered this league and been around it a long time. I sure want to give all credit to the victor. I don't want to go Hugh Freeze and talk playing 9 more times because you get one shot at them every year during the regular season. Now, if you run into playoffs, that's a different story, but y'all know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we know enough about this league. Ole Miss lost at home to Kentucky. That never bodes well.
Well, and Brett, you know what? You mentioned playing nobodies. We talked about it last week. Lane Kiffin said, hey, look, I don't
told
think
the truth.
Our team has
Lane
been tested that much because of the non-conference schedule, because of all that. But at the same time, too, did he not help make that non-conference schedule?
Well, whoever made it, and it plays out. And, we can't help that some of those teams just hardly had a pulse. I mean, everybody plays an FCS opponent.
Yep.
The one we played went to the quarterfinals of the FCS last year, but they weren't any good. Georgia Southern, I think fairly good, and we had a pretty good night against them. Wake Forest, they're nothing, and winning there wasn't much. And the other one against Middle Tennessee, they're starting all over with Derek Mason. So it was 4 nobodies. And handled them easily, and he knew it, and he was worried about it. So, whether you blame whoever made the schedule, biggest part of the thing, everybody looked at the preseason schedule and said it was Ole Miss 6-0 cakewalk before going to LSU. Now here we are 4-1 and going to South Carolina in a must-win. I think last weekend was the worst home SEC loss in Ole Miss football history.
Wow. Ooh. Considering what was at stake. I mean, yeah, and I can understand that. But I will give Lane Kiffin credit for his transparency. He did say, we haven't played anyone. I don't know how we're going to respond to when we play Kentucky. Now, I think he expected better, but as I said before you came on.
Fast.
Yeah.
And started fast.
Yeah.
Lickety split first touchdown.
Right.
And, what was really worse about last Saturday? Only scoring 17 against Kentucky or allowing 20 to that offense with Brock Vandegrift, who had thrown for 30 yards against South Carolina, 140 yards against Georgia, and then goes for 243 against Ole Miss.
Yeah, that it was surprising. And then it also came down to one play. If Ole Miss, gets off the field on that 4th down, that completion to Barian Brown, then they still find a way to win the game. And then there's a little bit more optimism. But Vandegrift had his best game of his career. We know the play that was made. Kentucky ends up, and the crazy fumble play. It's one of those things where it kind of reminded me of when Ole Miss beat Alabama in 2015. You had the ricochet, and then that play turns into a long touchdown for the Rebels, and the Rebels force 5 turnovers, and they escape, and they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. This time, if that fumble goes to Ole Miss inside the 5, that's another way Ole Miss could have hung on and won the game, but it lands in the tight end's hands.
And think about the three matchups now with Kentucky in Lane Kiffin's years. His first Ole Miss win up at Kentucky COVID year in the crazy turnovers, wild style that one ended in. They all went Ole Miss's ways. 2 years ago, get the strip on turnover machine Will Levis.
Yeah.
Early
That's
look
right.
at what he was going to be like in the NFL, and the Titans are going to be drafting another quarterback after drafting Malik Willis and Will Levis, and they're going to be drafting another one. So everything evens out in sports. It's why everybody's talking about how lucky Ole Miss was that night in Tuscaloosa. It's part of it.
Yeah.
And eventually it evens out. And Saturday it was time for Kentucky to get the breaks, and they got them, and they got the win. They deserved the win. Their nose guard was throwing the Ole Miss center into Jackson Dart in shotgun. Couldn't get a playoff. 1 for 11 on third down. Couldn't get any run game going. Couldn't really protect Jackson Dart for long in the pocket. It was hard for receivers other than Trey Harris to really get open. Caden Prescorn made the circus catch that looked like Ole Miss was going to drive down and win the game. Had Henry Parrish wide open on the wheel route right after that play to Prescorn, and Dart had a poor throw and then had to settle down and miss the kick, and Kentucky gets the win. Now it all reboots for Ole Miss. Anybody in the Ole Miss world talking playoffs? No, it's South Carolina. And then if you win against South Carolina, it's to LSU. Next time I want to talk playoffs in the Ole Miss world is win at South Carolina, win at LSU, win at home against Oklahoma, win at Fayetteville. If you don't do any of that, there's no playoffs need to be mentioned. And going to South Carolina is difficult. Ole Miss hadn't won there since 2004, hadn't won at LSU since 2008, hadn't won at Fayetteville since 2008, and hadn't won at Florida since 2008. So you're going against a lot of historical trends at Ole Miss.
So when you watch that Kentucky game, now, I mean, Kentucky played defensively great against Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, they held Georgia. They played great. But was there a point, Brett, when you were watching that game on Saturday that you just thought, okay, Ole Miss, I mean, I know the offense hasn't gotten going. We're probably not going to get those 600 yards, but one drive, just give us one good drive late, and this can get going, because we've seen it happen all year. We know this offense can get going. Just needed that one drive to kind of get going. Did you kind of keep thinking that in the back of your head that this could be that drive?
I did, Scott. I thought, I couldn't believe it till the clock hit 0 and the horn sounded. In Kentucky, they were the victors, and to the victor go the spoils. They were the better team. They got the win. I thought all day would kind of have the lane magic that we've had in a lot of wild games last year. Every one of those went Ole Miss's favor. A&M, LSU, Arkansas. You could even say the Egg Bowl, winning it by 10. That was close all night. All those games were tick-tock games and very fortunate to win. That all evens out. But when you think you have the best roster you've had ever, and we all did, and the defensive line played good last Saturday, but still hadn't been really nasty. And that will help the secondary if it is. The secondary is good, not great. Defensive line's got to play a lot better. Vandergrift just sat back there all day very comfortably, and then could in run pass option was there to make it happen. But all day, Scott, I kept thinking about this is going to be the drive, and then what would happen? The punter would run on the field and would have to punt. Our punter punted more last Saturday than he had all year.
Yeah, he really did.
Wow.
There's no doubt about that, and he's not lying. I mean, Fraser Mason, 5 punts, and he averaged 46, and 4 inside the 20. But that was much more than because this is a very potent Ole Miss offense. But was the most disappointing thing, Brett, and I could kind of hear it in your voice, the performance of the offensive line. That I know you've told us for 2 years you felt like this was as talented an offensive front as Ole Miss has had in many, many years, and yet they got manhandled on Saturday.
Sure did, and thought this one had depth, and it was the center 2 guards, which I think is the most critical part of the offensive line, just right there in kind of the Bermuda Triangle of football. That's where football is won. It just couldn't do anything. I mean, you could not run Henry Parrish at all. It was running into a wall, and their D line was that physical, and they tackled so well. We had not played anybody that tackled that well. Well, they're an SEC team. It's going to be better than playing Furman.
So you go to South Carolina on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the nose guard having a problem blocking against Kentucky and all that stuff. What are they going to have to do to get it right Saturday at South Carolina?
Scott, that is the question, because the South Carolina defensive ends, they're as talented as any defensive end grouping in the league. You put the two South Carolina defensive ends with the two inside players for Kentucky, and the three of us can win with that. I mean, that would be a beautiful defensive line. I don't think South Carolina at the point of attack is as physical as Kentucky, but then what they did to Kentucky makes you have a lot of pause in that stadium rocking. I do think Ole Miss got a break with it not being at night. It will be wild and fun at Williams-Brice on Saturday afternoon, but I think at night would be wilder. And I go back to, I haven't won there since 2004, went there as the fourth or fifth ranked team in the country in 2009 and lost on a Thursday night there. So not a lot of success there. And let's see how this team responds. We know a heavy portal influence team, you're worried about chemistry and a checkout factor after some losses. Well, one loss doesn't send you to the back of the line, and you're open, Scott. You were right. Used to in college football, you were kind of done with one, but now is it the mulligan? Is it the break? Is it the reprieve? Well, it only is if you kind of win out. Maybe one loss. I don't think there's going to be many 2-loss teams in the college football playoff. And the idea of people talking about a 9-3 team from the SEC in it, no way. And I don't think it deserves it. No matter who you've played or what you've done, the object is winning. And if you've lost 3 times, I think you've sacrificed your ability to play in a playoff. And we know this year, if you're not in the playoff and you thought you were going to be in all of the off season, and you're not in that playoff, every bowl looks like you're going to the Poulan Chainsaw Bowl.
Well, speaking of 3 losses, Auburn already has 3. You experienced Hugh Freeze in Oxford, Mississippi. He's been getting a lot of heat for how he's reacted.
He's recruiting great.
Yeah, but exactly. That's the mantra right now. What have been your thoughts on watching that program develop at Auburn and really the struggles of his bread and butter, which is offense?
Ooh, that's been the bread and butter. I'd hate to see what the plan B is. It's been awful. He's been awful. It's been predictable. The maturity level of him on game day on the sideline is not there. He thinks he's still on Friday night playing ECS. You can't run some of that stuff in the SEC. Gus run that. Gus realized quickly he wasn't at Hughes coaching against Lone Oak anymore, and had to go really to ground and pound to kind of a traditional, can you believe it, to offensive football like we've played forever. You can rush to the line of scrimmage and run your little trick plays all you want, and that works great in high school football. It doesn't in the SEC.
Right. And now, as you said, Ole Miss's backs are against the wall. They've got to win and probably win out to have a legitimate shot. And the first step will be in Columbia, South Carolina on Saturday afternoon.
I'm sorry, Drew. Did anybody in the Auburn media ask Coach Freeze after the loss Saturday how he thought they would do if they played Oklahoma 9 more times?
No, we did not hear it. Now,
I did think it was funny though that Peyton Thorne. I thought it was funny that Peyton Thorne came out and said that, "Hey, look, 9 times out of 10, I would still throw the same pass again."
I guess there was that comment.
I mean, it was kind of like, I don't know if he intended to actually say it like that, but he did say, I thought it was kind of funny that he used the same verbiage.
But we did get somebody in the Auburn media room post game with a quote from Patrick Fain died, didn't we? But we can't get around to asking how they would do the next 9 times. They should ask him, win or lose after every single game, how do you think you'd do the next 9? If you win, do you think you'd beat them 9 more times? If you lose, do you think you'd lose 9 more times? That Auburn media room never asked that because it's the biggest fanboy room in SEC.
Well, certainly we'll be monitoring Ole Miss and seeing how they react. That's the key that I want to see. This has been their first bit of adversity. How are they going to bounce back? And I will say this: Trey Harris has been maybe the best receiver in the SEC thus far. Ryan Williams not far behind. He had 11 catches on this past Saturday and carried this Ole Miss team. But my question is, Brett, I know Priestcorn had a huge play, but where are the other guys, the Bubba Wells and everything? I would think Ole Miss, they need some other guys to step up and help Trey Harris, who's a stud.
We sure do. And Caden Priestcorn has 10 catches on the year. He had 10 catches in the Peach Bowl.
Yeah. That's a great that shows you right there that they need to spread the football around a little bit more and need to get it rolling. And people got to understand, I give Kentucky a lot of credit for this, holding Ole Miss to 92 rushing yards, because Lane Kiffin, they've been phenomenal. And because Ole Miss has really been one of the top couple 2 to 3 rushing teams in the SEC the last 3 years under Lane Kiffin. They've been dominant on the ground and just couldn't get anything going. Well, Brett, no doubt, we always appreciate your time. And of course, have a great show. Sports Time, 3 to 6 this afternoon on Sports Radio WHBQ. Thank you very much, and safe travels to Columbia.
You got it, man. Enjoy the football.
Thanks. All right.
Very candid comments, as always, by Brett Norsworthy. Not pulling any punches. Certainly he's not a fan of Hugh Freeze, but also he tells the truth. I mean, that was a bad loss for Ole Miss.
Do you think
puts the season in doubt?
Do you think Lane Kiffin regrets doing what he did in spring ball as well? Not having any kind of contact, not having any kind of something like that? I mean, is that just something we look at because of the loss? We sit there and we glare at it and we say, well, look, they didn't do anything in the spring either.
Well,
is that an overreaction to the one loss?
I think it's a little bit overreacting. I think I go back to what Brett said. I mean, a lot of it evens out. Like last year, they pulled out all these close games. This time, they didn't get the bounce they wanted. I'm like everybody else. When I saw Priestcorn go up on that 4th down play and high point the ball, and the DB from Kentucky allowed him to get behind him.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Lord, I mean, they're going to win this game. And like Brett said, if the O-line could have held up, that wheel route was wide open for a touchdown. But as he rightly said, the D-line was the story for Kentucky. They dominated. They got pressure on Dart, made him hurry, and he couldn't hit Parrish to win the game. Because I will say this, it would be a totally different feel if Ole Miss had executed there and won it. First of all, Stoops would still be taking heat because we said it was the biggest win of his career at Kentucky. He would not have gotten that top 10 win. He would have lost another close game. And also, even though they executed offensively and took the lead, they would have been in other words, this time your offense comes through, but your defense can't get the key stop. And then Ole Miss would be getting lauded for showing the toughness to finish. But they just didn't show that toughness. You heard what Brett said defensively. The Rebels didn't play bad defensively, but when they had to get a stop, they didn't. Vandergriff was comfortable back there. So this is a huge stretch for the Rebels. Now, all those games that Brett mentioned, I think are winnable for Ole Miss. I do, as far as how talented they are. But he rightfully said chemistry. How good is the chemistry on this team? Is everybody going to keep rowing the boat in the same direction? And they need to bounce back and win impressively in Columbia, South Carolina. If they lose, the season's basically over because, like he said, I think it is going to be tough even for a 2-loss team to get in if it's not an Alabama or if it's not a Tennessee or if it's not, even a Georgia. If it's Ole Miss, because I don't think that, they're not playing the Texases of the world. They're not playing the Georgias of the world.
Right.
You're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And so the Rebels need to step up. And then how ironic if Ole Miss can turn it around and not hit any more speed bumps if he's playing Florida late in the year.
Yeah. All right, let's get a break in. 256-576-4977.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
They should be clearing that wreck on 20 eastbound at County Line Road. That one was in Leeton. Picked up one 431 northbound at B Road near Guntersville. That one may have an injury. Got one 101 and 157 in the Hatton community. That one also sounds like it could be an injury accident. From routine care to heart failure, Dr. Randall Burns and the team at Huntsville Heart Specialist on Bob Wallace have the expertise to care for all matters of the heart. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
When you call most roofing companies, all you'll hear is, you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming. At Fleming Roofing and Restoration, we're focused on your needs, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement. Folks around here have trusted Fleming since 1965 for all their residential and commercial roofing needs. And as the area's storm damage experts, Fleming knows all the ins and outs of the insurance claims process. Log on FlemingHSV.com to schedule your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
You don't have to go somewhere else just so you can go somewhere new. Plan your next vacation with Huntsville International Airport and Breeze Airways. Enjoy friendly, convenient, nonstop travel to some of the most exciting destinations in the U.S., including the home of 12 world-famous theme parks, Orlando, Florida. With flights starting as low as just $49, Breeze has got you covered with easy, breezy, nonstop flights to Orlando. Make all their dreams come true. Book nonstop to Orlando now at flybreeze.com.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying Roll Tide and War Eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great specials at universitykia.com and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia you really want, because we want to see you in a University Kia.
All right, 8:26 here on a Thursday morning. Welcome back, Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. Welcome back into the program.
Yeah, and I was going to correct myself too, because we were kind of looking to see if South Carolina, we've been kind of talking about could they have their second upset of the year. They have already knocked off Kentucky on the road. They're hosting, Ole Miss. They nearly knocked off LSU in Columbia. So that's going to be a huge test to see if the Rebels can bounce back. You heard Brett say after that, their longtime rival LSU. That'll be in Tiger Stadium, by the way. So that'll be a tough road trip. And then they'll be off, and they play the Oklahoma Sooners. They're at Arkansas. But my mistake, I was thinking for some reason it was Texas A&M. They are actually playing Georgia. Right. They play Georgia on November the 9th on Saturday, and that will be in Oxford. So that will be a potentially. Brett kind of brought up this 4-game stretch: South Carolina, LSU, bye week, Oklahoma, Arkansas. I still say that the Rebels are going to be the favorite in probably all those games. It might be a pick 'em or a very slight favorite against LSU and I know it's in Tiger Stadium, but I just haven't been impressed with LSU's defense at all. And with that, their lack of tackling, their lack of physicality, I mean, Ole Miss has got talent. I would slightly favor Ole Miss in that game, but you're talking about they should be big favorites, pretty big in my opinion anyway, at home against Oklahoma. Even though OU is kind of like Kentucky, they got a really good defense, but their offense is a work in progress. At Arkansas, the Hogs are okay; they're improved, but not great. But that would set up a huge game with Georgia, where I think. I mean, and depending on the dog schedule, is very difficult too. That could be a loser leave town game. Like, okay, if you lose this game, you're not going to go to Atlanta, and because remember, there's no divisions, and
right.
so
and your top 2 teams,
and the loser would have 2 losses and would very likely be on the outside looking in the playoffs. So that game could be gargantuan, but to make it gargantuan, you've got to win these next 4 if you're the Rebels.
Well, if you're Shane Beamer and you're welcoming Ole Miss. Boy, that LSU loss could really come back to hurt them. I'm not talking about playoffs. I'm not talking about anything like that. Well, I'm talking about just getting 6 wins, because South Carolina right now, they're 3-1. Mm-hmm. That LSU loss looms big, because if you can find a way to beat Ole Miss, that's going to give you 4 wins. Your remaining schedule going forward
You're about
is
to tell me.
Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Wofford, and Clemson.
And guess what? The Clemson game's on the road.
Yes.
Oklahoma's on the road and Alabama's on the road. So that's
You're
going to be
trying
tough.
to get to 6 wins.
You're trying to get to bowl eligibility.
If you could have gotten LSU, you would have 4 wins right now.
Right.
Then you look at that schedule and you're saying, okay, can we grab 2 wins? Yeah. If we can play well against Vanderbilt, maybe. If we definitely should beat Wofford. Okay. So there's possibly 6 wins on that schedule, maybe 7. You can get to a bowl game. Shane Beamer, that's great. That's a heck of a year for South Carolina with this schedule and what you have. Now you can't hold on to LSU. Now you're trying to find 3 wins.
You need to win at home and protect your house too.
Yes. And that's why this Ole Miss game for South Carolina is ginormous. I'm not talking about playoff ginormous.
Well,
I'm
you just
thinking
mean to make the postseason.
Yeah. This could make or break it for South Carolina.
And for some reason, they're playing Texas A&M for homecoming.
Tennessee's going to Fayetteville. They're going to Fayetteville.
Yeah,
I had them going to Austin.
Well, hell, this damn league, it's so big now. It's hard to. That's why I knew that, of course, Ole Miss is not playing their longtime rivals, Alabama and Auburn, which is weird. And so I was thinking that Texas A&M was in the same division, and up until this year, and I was thinking they were playing them. And it's hard for me to keep straight who's playing who. That's why I was like, man, okay, that's right. They are playing Georgia. So that's a tough one. But again, a big 4-game stretch for the Rebels. You're trying to get to Georgia in Oxford.
Yep.
So that's a relevant game.
Tennessee is heading to Fayetteville. Vince Ferrara is heading on our show next. He's in the green room getting ready. We'll talk to Vince Ferrara coming up next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Got a new rate reported. James Record and Glenn Hearn. That one is coming in as an injury type. Got Himsey and law enforcement on the way for it. Everything else looks good at this point. I don't see anything new accident-wise. No hose, no mask. You can ask Dr. Sandman, that's Dr. Sandlin, for the medically proven benefits of the Somnodent for sleep apnea and for snoring. Dr. Sandlin, 350-CARE. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
It's the dawning of a new age in Tuscaloosa.
I understand what Alabama football is all about. Roll time.
Join the Crimson Tide as the Kalen DuBois era begins.
Touchdown!
Join us Saturday as the Crimson Tide head to Music City to throw down with the Vanderbilt Commodores. Our coverage begins at noon on your home for Alabama football. Listen to Alabama football all season long on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
The company is Eagle Masonry and Insulation, but did you know they're also Eagle Landscaping and Dirt Work? Eagle can take care of all your landscaping needs, including irrigation, sod work, and planting, both plants and trees. On the dirt work side, Eagle can grade and build your pads, haul dirt in or out, and even do erosion control. Philip Love and his team can do it all for you. The website is the same, insulatewitheagle.com, as is the phone number, 256-755-1556. Give them a call and see what Eagle can do for you. Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money.
All right, welcome back. Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. The Tennessee Volunteers going to pack up the old hauler and make their way to Fayetteville, Arkansas for a showdown with the Arkansas Razorbacks. Tennessee, in case you did not know, Drew, they are one of 4 programs in the country. They joined Texas, Indiana, and Army as teams that have not trailed at any point this season. The Vols have not trailed in 24 straight quarters, dating back to last season's Vanderbilt game. The last time Tennessee trailed when it lost to top-ranked Georgia on November 18th.
And, the Tennessee program under Josh Heupel and Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator, because I know they have an offensive coordinator, but I still think of Heupel as that guy. He's so heavy-handed with it, with the play calling and everything. But they've progressed to the point where I didn't think they played their best football at Oklahoma, but they played against a very talented defensive front from the Sooners. They handled business. I watched a little over half the game, but I never felt like Tennessee was in any sort of danger. The way they handled that road trip, that was certainly, I thought a watershed moment for them, because their defense has always kind of been the biggest question under Josh Heupel. But our next guest, of course, does a great job for the Sports Animal 99.1. He just got off on the of his show, his daily morning drive show with John Wilkerson. They do a great job with sports talk each and every morning in the Knoxville, Tennessee, area. And he's also part of the IMG Vols radio network, and that is Vince Farrar, and he's joining us now on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Vince, good morning.
Good morning, my guys. Hope you're doing well.
We're doing well, and Tennessee certainly is. We talked to you in the off season in Dallas, and even after that, we talked about how deep the defensive line was going to be potentially for Tennessee. It certainly lived up to that. Big questions, though, about the back end still. That seemed to be the biggest question going into the season. But passed the first test against Oklahoma, played really well, and now going on the road to an Arkansas team, which now that the season's underway and kind of unfolded, much like everybody's kind of rat trapping Alabama going to Vanderbilt, this is a kind of a rat trap game for the Vols a little bit.
Yeah, I think so, and I think Tennessee is a little bit more at risk than Alabama is if you're going to compare those kind of scenarios. But just to put a bow kind of on Oklahoma, and you were mentioning as you guys brought me in, Tennessee maybe not playing their best game. I think you didn't see the typical explosiveness of the Tennessee offense. Yeah. And what Josh Heupel decided to do really happened in the second quarter is, hey, we got a lead. We're going to shorten this game, and we're going to ride that defense that Oklahoma was doing nothing against. And we're going to run the ball, and we're going to get out of here with a win. And another part of it is they had lost at that point. They didn't have their starting left tackle in Lance Hurd coming into the game. He was out. Then they lost their starting right tackle in John Campbell. So you had backup tackles in. Nico already had been hit blindside and lost a fumble. So they were like, all right, we're having protection issues. Here's our defense. We got a good running game. Let's get out of here. And I actually thought that you talk about watershed moments. I actually thought that was a elevation as a head coach of Josh Heupel.
Yeah.
We hadn't really seen him manage a game like that, like do what you need to win. He didn't coach with emotion. He didn't towards his alma mater. He didn't coach towards reputation of I always have to be aggressive and pedal to the metal type of thing. He coached to win the game under that scenario. And so I think that was impressive in the way he got out of there and handled things and didn't put his quarterback or his team in harm's way and let them come back like, Oklahoma did against Auburn with a late pick and things like that. So that the way they handled it was impressive. But there's still, you mentioned the back end of the defense. I think they've been outstanding. Now, have they played a top-notch quarterback? No. Grayson McCall was supposed to be, but he has not been a good fit for that NC State offense. Jackson Arnold got yanked because he was turning the ball over and couldn't handle the moment. But Tennessee is more athletic and they're faster on defense than they've ever been, and under Josh Heupel. So I think they have checked the boxes. Tennessee's two starting corners are terrific. Jermod McCoy is one of the better corners in the SEC, and Ricky Gibson's playing at a high level. Those two guys play the entire game, and then they have a couple guys at the star, and they rotate a little bit more at safety, but they're more athletic and faster than they've been, to go with being healthy in their front seven with their two linebackers in Peely and Carter, big and can run. And then obviously the D-line, as you mentioned, they played in an SEC road game against a good opponent. They rotated 12 defensive linemen. Now, I told people that, so we talked about it in the offseason. They will rotate 3 deep easily on that D-line. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, yeah, whatever, maybe for their non-conference games.
No.
That they trust that many guys, and a 5-star in Jordan Ross, 5-star freshman, can't even get in there. And there's another strong side defensive end in Tyree Weathersby that could work his way into that 3 deep. So it's a highly unusual just luxury that they have with Rodney Garner in that D line. They're not even, there's a first-round pick in James Pierce Jr., but they're not a bunch of first-round picks. They're just a lot of really tough physical guys in there.
Well, Vince, you look at it and you said it, rely on the defense to win a game and just kind of take over. That's something Josh Heupel's been building on since he's arrived there. The offense kind of came along and we know his offensive mind, the offense got established, but it's the defense that had to play catch up. And to see that and to hear that, I'm sure Vols fans have got to be like, okay, maybe now we're starting to become a complete team.
It does change the conversation, Scott, because anytime you would think of Tennessee being in playoff contention, you had to get at least better, somewhat better on defense. Even if you weren't the best in the country, you had to be respectable. You couldn't have those games where you were just giving up busts and points into the 40s and have to be forced to outscore teams. They don't have to do that. In fact, right now, because of the last game where they weren't explosive on offense, I think some fans probably have more confidence in the defense all of a sudden than even the offense. Nico is still a few games into his college career, 5 games. He's been very impressive, even if the numbers in the last game, or actually the last 2, haven't been over the top. But I think there's still a box to be checked, guys, with Josh Heupel and his offense. And they have checked some boxes this year for sure. But one thing we still don't know is if this offense in hostile, tough road environments, if it travels. They even last year, obviously with Joe Milton at the helm, they had disappointments on the road. But 2 years ago, that was the case against South Carolina with Hendon Hooker. Against Georgia, the offense was a shell of itself. Now, granted, it's a great team, but if you're going to be a championship team, you have to be able to be that against the really good teams too and beat some of those. We really haven't seen them take that offense other than Missouri a couple of years ago. But they've lost to Florida, lost to South Carolina, lost to really good programs. It's been a minute. We haven't really seen them do it. Now maybe Arkansas doesn't end up being that good, so maybe this won't be the box to check. But at some point, they got to show that explosive offense is that way, regardless of the location. Sometimes the fans have gotten to them, pre-snap penalties, things like that. Now, this is a different group. Last week was the first true test, and they kind of dialed it back. So give them a little bit of a pass for that. We'll see this week if they have to rely on the offense a little bit more, if they can come through and look like we've seen them at home.
Well, the one thing that impressed me, especially early, that set the tone for the rest of the game, they were able to build that lead. They did make some explosive plays in Norman. I think when he transferred a couple of years ago, this was kind of the Dante Thornton they envisioned when they got him from Oregon. But he was a huge factor getting behind the defense. And what I think is a good Oklahoma defense, but they were able to stretch the field, and he did make a couple of big plays early, Vince.
Yeah, and the throw from Nico was terrific as well. But Thornton looks more comfortable. When he first came in, he put too much pressure on himself. Some of these guys in the portal, they hear, hey, this is going to be a breakout player at his new place, and he was thinking stats, and he was thinking, man, everybody thinks I'm going to be great. Put so much pressure on himself. They didn't have depth at the slot, so they started him at the slot, kind of out of need. And he struggled there. He wasn't his most comfortable there. So during the year last year, they moved him to the outside. And just when he was starting to hit his stride, he had the long touchdown catch in Missouri, got hurt, and his season was over. So this year came in with just a much more relaxed mindset. They were leaving him on the outside. He could learn that position more, because the receivers have reads and options. They have to be on the same page as the quarterback. So just through time, maturity, and relaxing, he's settled in on the outside, and they have some depth out there. So there's still, a little bit of can the receivers, because I don't even think they've played their best ball. They've had some explosive plays, but I still want to see against top competition and DBs, can they win some of those one-on-one battles, or are they always going to have to be schemed to get them open for those explosive plays? Certainly, they've had their big moments, but maybe not. Was still to be determined with the better competition. So it's interesting they do have a former Tennessee Volunteer as their starting nickel, and Danico Slaughter played 4 years with the Vols, and he'll probably be matched up with Squirrel White in the slot a lot in that game. Slaughter is one of their better defensive players. He's been really good. He would probably be Tennessee's starting nickel corner or that star corner if he was still at UT. And then there's another former Tennessee player in Addison Nichols is Arkansas starting center. Now he's been a little bit more of a rocky road for him, but he is still their best and starting center. So there'll be a little bit of that, guys from the portal wanting to beat their former team.
Well, it's been 4 years since the Vols have played Arkansas, and that last one was in Fayetteville. A guy by the name of Jarrett Garantano was the quarterback for the Vols.
Don't remind them that, man.
Yeah, and he got knocked out in that ball game. But
not trying to remember
it's
that.
been a little bit since Tennessee's been to Fayetteville.
Yeah, Vince doesn't want any more questions about Jarrett Garantano. I know you got tired of it. But I will say this: what do you think about? They did face a mobile quarterback in Hawkins. Talon Green is the same kind of dual threat, but he's been prone to mistakes. How do you see that matchup with Tennessee's defense?
It's a great question, because it's been a big topic of conversation. Is how does Tennessee? That's another one of those boxes to check. How does Tennessee's defense go up against the mobile quarterback? Now Hawkins at first really struggled, and then kind of got his footing a little bit late. I think a little bit of that was Tim Banks had started to go back into more coverage and force him to throw the ball. And then he started running around a little bit, and then Banks was like, "Okay, we're going to get back to what we were doing," and so I don't think that means that anyone can run on Tennessee's defense.
Yeah,
but it is what Arkansas does really well when they get the running game going with Jaquindon Jackson, who leads the SEC in rushing and second in rushing touchdowns, and Arkansas as a team is first in the SEC in rushing touchdowns. When they get Green and Jackson going in the run game, that is what makes it difficult. Oklahoma couldn't even really run with their running backs. But when you got both of them going, then your RPO game can really, really be effective. So Tennessee stopping or slowing down the run game of Jackson, I think is what they'd like to do, and then force a Green to put too much pressure on himself to try to make plays. And that's when he has been prone to turn the ball over. His numbers the last 2 games are drastically different than what they were for the first 2 games of the season. In fact, the first 2 games, Green was 62% completion, 5 total touchdowns, 1 interception. That's passing and rushing touchdowns. The last 3 games, Green 49% completion percentage, 4 total touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I think he's got a fumble or 2 in there as well. And that's against UAB, Auburn, Texas A&M. Now you're playing a team better than any of those in Tennessee with their defense. So I think that's the game plan, is to try to force Green into those mistakes. And, he's got spectacular plays in him, but you got to get him to the ground. And if not, he does have weapons on the outside like Armstrong and a couple of other guys. So, he is the target of their game plan, but it's also via stopping the run, which Tennessee has been really stout at, honestly, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, they have.
Nico is making his second SEC road start. How do you think he fared in his first one? How would you grade that? How would you grade that in his performance against Oklahoma?
I think it's better than maybe what the numbers show. I mean, there were a couple of fumbles in there when he was hit in the pocket, but I think he understands his role right now, and he's not playing Euro ball. He's not doing what Will Levis tries to do for the Tennessee Titans and always be the hero in every play. He's not playing that way. He's playing within what they want to do, and then at times it's ride the run game, ride the defense, and then not force the ball in the tight windows. He takes checkdowns, which Joe Milton was not always willing to do. Milton would often pass on those checkdowns to throw a deep ball, and the completion percentage wasn't good. Nico's not just throwing it down the field just to show off his arm. So I think he's playing within himself, the maturity, and every guy I talked to, Miles Kitselman, the former Alabama tight end, who started every game for Tennessee and has been really, really good. Tennessee is a good group of 3 tight ends, but he was my Vol Network pregame player interview, and him and just like all the guys we talked to, when we ask about Nico, they're like, when something doesn't go right or if there's a turnover or something, he's the same guy. He flatlines. He says, "It's on me. I'll get it corrected." He does, but then he's not too high, not too low. This is a 5-star guy with so much attention coming in. He doesn't have that kind of demeanor. He's much more poised and flatlined and mature than that. So I think that's great for the road environments to not have that emotion to him. And he has ability, which he's not even fully showing because he doesn't need to right now because they're winning games. And they won their last game without him having to do too much, and he's fine with that. So he'll do what they need him to do. There's going to be a time where they're behind, and you're going to see the full arsenal unleashed, just not forcing it right now. So I think he has been outstanding this year. I'd give him B+ to A- for sure.
Well, and my final question is, I know he was on with you guys giving his analysis, but how did the mayor of Knoxville, Tony Vitello, do as an analyst for football?
Oh, he's always willing and able to talk about Tennessee football and basketball and all that. And so, yeah, he is really good. We have him on literally during the football season because he likes to talk about those other things. He doesn't act like he's a coach, but he can tell you that Arkansas is gonna has a dual threat quarterback and Tennessee is going to need to try to slow him down, and that Tennessee has the advantage at the line of scrimmage and things like that. But he just loves it. He supports the other programs and goes to games whatever he can. And it's big on recruiting. I mean, he takes advantage of it. A lot of the Tennessee sports take advantage of the home football crowds, and they haven't had one in a while. We'll have one next week with Florida. Who knows who their coach will be at the time, but based on what happens this weekend. But yeah, he can talk all kinds of ball besides baseball, and they're scrimmaging every day too. So there was some baseball to talk about also.
Oh, no doubt, and it's going to be a no mercy next week. That's going to be so ugly. Oh my God. Okay, but we'll have you back on to talk about that massacre. Sure. But anyway, thank you, Vince. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, man. Rest of your week, and we always appreciate it. Let everybody know how to connect with you.
Yeah, good to be on with you. Appreciate you guys a lot. It's at Vince Sports on all the socials, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then our show is Sports Talk on 991. And then your website, all over the place, Ball Network stuff, podcast for the show, all that, a little bit of TV here and there when they'll have me on. So a lot of stuff going on during the football season. But it's fun to be on with you guys as always.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Vince.
All right, thanks, guys.
Hey, we got the TV treatment this week.
Let's get our final break in. Tomorrow's headlines next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Had a wreck in Decatur, 6th Avenue and 14th Street. Turns out to be a no injury. Sounds like they're moving it to a parking lot. Got an injury wreck, James Record and Glen Hearn. And we just got one, Mount Lebanon Road and Patterson Lane, that's being reported as an injury type. Need assistance on a temp project or maybe finding a new employee? Snelling can help. They also do background checks, computer assessments, and payroll. Huntsville.snelling.com. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
Specializing in simple and affordable rentals, McCurry Van and Car Rental can make sure you have just the right vehicle for your next family vacation, weekend getaway, or if you just need transportation while your vehicle is being repaired. McCurry carries Ford Transit vans and Mercedes Sprinter vans, trucks and work vans, and more. And they offer discounted rental rates for long-term rentals. Now with 4 locations: Athens, Muscle Shoals, Coleman, and Huntsville. Log on McCurryRentals.com to make your reservation now. That's McCurryRentals.com.
It's time for tomorrow's headlines today with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Be careful. Gotta be careful.
Lord.
Oh, yes. The TV treatment this week. That was pretty fun.
We appreciate WHNT 19, our great partner.
Yeah, for helping us with that one. That was good.
And she was a Tennessee grad.
She was a Tennessee grad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, she could sit in here with us any day and talk college football.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because she definitely can. And yes, a big thanks to our friends over at WHNT. They came in here earlier this week, and Nikki Marker from WHNT came in here and did a story with us on the Alabama-Georgia game and the whole Kalen DeBoer and going forward. Yeah. So it was fun. But Nikki could sit in here and talk college football with the best of us. She knows what she was talking about. Anyway, don't forget tonight you have a little you got the Atlanta Falcons tonight. So you got some Thursday night NFL football you can watch.
And you can hear it
right here.
I'm sure.
Falcons and Bucks tonight.
Yeah, Falcons and Bucks.
And then tomorrow night you
after
got
the drive.
Football. Remember, because it's 55 straight days of
55 days of football.
55 days.
Yep. Can the Atlanta Falcons continue to be a under the radar division contender? It still looks like right now the Bucks are probably the best team in the division. Though. This is a big game for Atlanta.
Not a great division.
No. Panthers suck. Get out of there, Bryce. Get the hell out. Go to Tennessee so they can get rid of Turnover Levis.
They got a win last week without him.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, talking ball.
Chapman Commercial Realty, your source for Alabama commercial real